This is Super Yacht News with E. Sisman.
Hi, welcome back to the channel. So we are looking at the newly launched 60-meter Project 713. It's been seen for the first time in public since completion. According to Feadship, this represents another progressive step towards its goal of being climate neutral by 2030. The yacht is believed to be called Motor Yacht B, based on images of her transom, which was reported by Boat International. So if that's true, then we have Motor Yacht A and we now have Motor Yacht B. Interesting naming scheme. The yacht is the first Feadship to carry solar cells for auxiliary power generation. Now, auxiliary meaning, hotel requirements most likely, as there are no solar power cells available today that could generate the power needed for a yacht of this size. Even if you covered the entire yacht in solar panels, you would not be able to generate all the power you need to sail this vessel around. She's fitted with diesel electric propulsion as well, and the ability to run on non-fossil HVO like other Feadships. The hull is optimized for cruising speed instead of top speed. This might not sound like it's not very important, but this could be a major benefit to fuel consumption, as any yacht will rarely travel at top speed. So having the hull designed to be most efficient at cruising speed, which is what a yacht travels at 99% of the time, means that less fuel will be needed most of the time. So if we look at some of the photos here, we can see the solar panels on the front area in front of the bridge and on the top of the bridge area. It would be interesting thinking about it from a practical point of view, how these areas will fare when being cleaned by deckhands, notorious for breaking things and flooding things. I assume the panels have been built in a way that the area could be walked on by the crew whilst cleaning. I don't have an answer to that, but I would imagine it would have to be because it needs to be cleaned. It should be noted that the mast has not been fitted in these photos here. It's most likely to do with the clearance in the shed where it was built. However, you can see in the photos here that the Starlink dishes are already fitted further forward. And this seems to be the most common location for Starlink dishes on yachts since their rapid rise in the industry. I'll give you some stats on this new boat. 59.5 meters, 195 feet. It has twin Azipod electric motors of 1,000 kilowatts each. Quantum stabilizers, the zero speed stabilizers, maximum / cruising speed of 15 knots and a range of 5,000 nautical miles. To put that into perspective, a transatlantic voyage is about, depending on where you start, Gibraltar to the Caribbean is about 3,400 nautical miles. Now, this yacht is also the first new build Feadship to feature the FSC certified plantation teak for all the decking. Again, it might not sound like much, but the certification means that the wood is harvested in a sustainable way. And this comes after, in recent years, there was a scandal where wood from Myanmar, a very popular location for teak, which had been banned from importation into Europe, was actually being imported through Czech Republic, I believe, according to reports from the NRL.NL. If you want to check out that website, I'll put a link in the description. And some of that wood that was illegally imported into Europe went to Oceanco, and it's believed that it could even be on Jeff Bezos's yacht Koru. I'll post a link in the description if you want to read that article. But that's what that certification is probably to alleviate concerns about. A good looking yacht overall. It's got that straight bow, which reminds me of a Bonetti. But it's a good looking yacht. Let me know in the comments what you think of this new yacht. It's not completed yet. It still has to have the mast, go on sea trials, etc. But very interesting anyway. So I'm not sure how much energy the solar panels will be able to create. Would be interesting to have those stats. They've not been released yet, if they'll ever be released. But I would imagine it will only go towards a percentage of recharging batteries for auxiliary power. Now, whenever we talk about a super yacht being green or being better for the environment, we always get the same comments that a super yacht cannot be green. Now, I agree, it can't be completely green. But, a couple of years ago, for instance, I posted a video and photographs on Instagram of a 116-year-old wooden sailing ship which is owned as a private yacht. And I asked the question on Instagram, is this a green yacht? And people still said that the vessel was not green. It was 116 years old, completely made of wood, and it was a sailing yacht. I asked the question, is it not better for companies that build super yachts to be using or to be discovering ways to make them more renewable, to use greener fuel sources, and making, every possible effort to not pollute where possible? The aim of this technology is not to appease people who would say you can only be green by not building it in the first place, by living in a cave. And those same people would criticize that cave dweller for burning wood to stay warm. It's to have a yacht, but to do their best not to pollute at the same time. Instead of telling people they can't have their new iPhone or laptop or iPad or luxury car or house, etc., nobody's going to accept that. But those companies that build those things can work towards making them as environmentally friendly as possible. And it's the same with a super yacht. Regardless of your thoughts on whether they should exist, the reality is they do exist. And the companies that build them are trying their very best to make them as friendly to the environment as they can be. All right, we'll move on. I got a correction from yesterday's video. In video episode 350, I said that the new yacht, which is now named Launchpad, owned by Mark Zuckerberg, was built at Oceanco in the Netherlands. Clearly, this is not the case. The yacht was built by Feadship in the Netherlands. It's not the first time I've said this, and it probably won't be the last. However, I do have a very good reason for me mistakenly saying this, which I'm going to explain. The original buyer, or the man who ordered the vessel, is a man called Vladimir Potanin, not Putin, but Potanin. He's a Russian serial yacht owner. And previously to ordering NB1010, which is now Launchpad, he owned 3 yachts, which were almost identical in size and in style. Blue exterior, blue hull. And Motor Yacht Barbara, Motor Yacht Anastasia, and Motor Yacht Nirvana. There was the names of those 3 boats. The last one he still owns, as far as we know. Now, all of these vessels were built by Oceanco. The new yacht he ordered looks almost identical to those other yachts, just a much larger one, same blue hull, very similar. And that's why I mistakenly said it was built by Oceanco, because every time I look at it, I think of those other boats that he already owns. So that's my mistake there, so I apologize for that anyway. But if you hear me say it in the future, just know that it's Feadship. Now, something else that came up in yesterday's video was the location of the image of Project Sassi, the yacht that was destroyed by fire whilst being constructed by Lursen in 2018. Now, I said that the yacht was in Bremen, when the fire occurred, and yet the photograph shows clearly the yacht is in the Blohm + Voss facility in Hamburg, which is now owned by Lursen. Now, I say clearly because you can see Blohm + Voss written on the door, right, of the dry dock facility. Now, the information in the video was correct. The fire did occur whilst the yacht was under construction in a floating dry dock in Bremen. However, after the fire, the remains of that yacht were transported to Lursen in Hamburg, the Blohm + Voss dry dock. And that was in 2019, I believe, or end of 2018, beginning of 2019. And then 2021, the completed hull was then taken out of that dry dock and then returned to Bremen in a newly constructed floating dry dock, and that went back to Bremen for completion. The transported hull became Motor Yacht Opera, as I said in the previous video. Anyway, whenever we cover fires, either on board yachts or at shipyards, there's lots of comments about the lack of firefighting equipment in both of these locations. However, it should be noted that any yard in Europe would be required to have adequate firefighting equipment installed, sprinklers, etc. Especially where there's lots of people working in a yard. Now, it's possible, however, that a fire, if hot enough and strong enough with enough flammable equipment, that the systems in that shed might not be able to put out that fire. That does happen. You have the fire triangle, the heat, the fuel, and the air, and when all of those things are in, when there's a lot of all of those things, you have a big fire. So it's possible to have all of those regulatory equipment in place, and yet the factory is not able to extinguish the fire equipment in that factory is not able to extinguish it. So that's probably, that looks like what's happened here, right? So if we take away the building and we talk about a yacht that's completed and it's, it's fully crewed and everything, then the firefighting systems on board are based largely to the codes that the vessel was built to. You know, the smaller the yacht, the less firefighting equipment will be installed on board. Now, we often talk about the class of yacht, you know, how many guests are allowed on board, whether it's under 500 gross tons or under 300 gross tons. And these are classes when they go over 3,000 gross tons, for instance, or when they go over 12 guests, then the level of safety equipment is increased exponentially. And that's why you see a lot of these limits in place. If we look at any yacht over, say, 500 gross tons, I say probably a lot of them under 500 gross tons will have good firefighting equipment, but certainly over that, they will have very good systems on board. Now, we've got a video coming next week. We've just done a yacht tour, and we looked at some of the firefighting equipment on board that yacht. So we're going to go through that in that video. So look out for that next week. All right, it's time for a Friday yacht spot. Now, we didn't have one last week because we didn't have a video on Friday. So I'm going to cram in some extra photos here so we can, the ones that we put aside for last week's video. The first one we have here is Yacht Amadea. This was taken in Everett, which is on the northwest of the US by Seattle. And it was filmed by Dan King, and it's outstanding footage of Amadea after her refit. You can see the floating dry dock just behind there. That's where Amadea was during the refit. I didn't feel like I did the footage justice in the previous videos, and I actually didn't even have his name to hand at one point because I had a problem with my computer. It's a beautiful yacht built by Lürsen in Rendsburg in Germany in 2017, where they've just had this most recent fire, in fact. The yacht is under a legal dispute in the US at the moment, which we are covering on the channel. The next footage we've got here is Yacht Calex, C-A-L-E-X. This is a 67 meter or 219 foot super yacht built by Benetti in 2022. You can see that straight hull there. It's very similar to the Feadship I showed you earlier. 1,250 gross tons and a value of around $90 million. And the owner, we believe, is David Wilson of Wilson Automotive Group in the US. So now we got some quick fire photos here. So single photograph of a different yacht. First one we've got is Yacht Hyder. This is in Seattle. It was taken on the 10th of June. This boat was built in 1929 and it still has original engines in it. Quite incredible. We've talked about it before. Next, we've got a photograph of Eclipse, owned by Roman Abramovich. This yacht is laid up in Bodrum in Turkey. I think it's Bodrum. Next, we've got sailing yacht Koru and the support vessel Abiona, also in Bodrum in Turkey. Next on the list, we've got a photograph from an aircraft that was taken off from Dubai, and you can see below the Dubai marina, we can see Yacht A there, Yacht Dubai, and of course the QE2, the former Cunard ocean liner there, which is now a hotel in Dubai. And finally, we have a photograph of Bill Gates' new yacht, the one that he's already put up for sale before he's even taken delivery of. This yacht is having the mast fitted. If you'll remember when it came out of the shed, like the Feadship we showed you before, it didn't have the mast on it, and it's been fitted in this photograph here. Be sure to check out our new feature, which is coming this Sunday. We visit the Italian marina to check out Putin's yacht, as the locals call it, she's apparently having more millions of dollars thrown at her in the shipyard whilst being detained by the Italian government. And if you can't wait until Sunday, you can check it out on Patreon, where the video is already live without adverts, exclusively for our patron members. Now, if you're not a member, you can join very easily by clicking on the link in the top corner. And we actually post more videos on Patreon than we do on the main channel. All right, guys, if you've got any information for us about any of these stories or any others, please be sure to get in touch in the normal fashion. You can get us on the About page of the YouTube channel. You can get us on the email address and the ticker. You can get us on, Facebook Messenger, Twitter, etc. And you can also get us on Threema. Be sure to like this video, very important for the algorithm. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for future notifications, and remember to share it with people who you think might be interested. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.